And they're like, I'm so sorry. I know this really hurts. You are bleeding a lot. We have to do this. So they start pushing on me. I'm like screaming at this point. Brian is covering Lucy's ears.
Oh.
And the baby nurse was like, she's okay. It's okay. Like he was like, Kathleen, like Lucy's right there. Like, don't scream at her.
I'm Kayla Heater, follower of Jesus, wife and mother of 6 children, Christian childbirth educator and doula, and your host of the Surrendered Birth Stories podcast, where we share God-centered birth stories, evidence-based birth education, and our pursuit of surrendering our birth plans to God. Let's get started. Well, hey, everybody. I'm going to be real honest with you. I am recording this at almost 11 p.m. at night, and I am exhausted. So this is going to be short and sweet. Last week you had a really long intro, and this week you get a really short one. I got home from childbirth class tonight. It was our last one. I'm going to miss that group. That was a great group. They did such a good job. Very proud of them. Also realized as I was teaching tonight that that's going to be the last time I teach that as a 5-week course. From this point forward, it's going to have to be a 6-week course because there is just so much information that I have to share with you all to help you feel adequately prepared to walk into this new season. So anyways, I was thinking so much about that I totally forgot to record this week's intro until I was literally texted my husband, like, I'm going to bed, because he was upstairs editing the podcast. And he was like, wait, where's my intro for this week? And then my hand hit my face, just like the emoji, except I actually sent him a crying emoji because I'm so tired. But this is real life with a baby who got up like every hour last night. And I'm feeling it. So I love you guys. I hope you can show me grace this week. So I'm just going to jump right into this week's episode. Now, this week's episode is a 2-parter. This is part 1 of 2. So you'll be hearing the first half of Kathleen's story. So let's get into it. When you get sent home from the hospital during your first labor because you're only 1.5 centimeters dilated, and told you're in early labor, it can be quite confusing to know when to come back. Poor Kathleen ended up laboring all alone, all night long, thinking she was just in early labor. Then shows up to the hospital the next morning begging for an epidural, only to find out she was actually fully dilated and ready to push. This all sounded great, until her delivery experience was decided for her from the hospital staff in the room, which led to a traumatic experience for Kathleen and eventually therapy. Welcome to another episode of Surrendered Birth Stories. I am your host, Kayla Heater, and I have Kathleen with me today. Kathleen, why don't you take just a minute and introduce yourself and your family and kind of give us a peek into your day-to-day life.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. I'm Kathleen. I'm married to Brian, and we've been married about 4 years. I'm a speech language pathologist, so I've just recently started back working part-time, so that has been fun in this season. And I have a 3-year-old Lucy and a 20-month-old Naomi.
2 girls kind of close in age then. Did you play the 2 under 2 card for a while?
Just a little while. I think they're like 21 months apart.
Okay. So yeah, for a few months.
Yeah.
We did that once. There was one time where we did 2 under 2, but it ended up now they're like, out of all of our kids, they have the best relationship and they're closest and they're like attached at the hip, those 2 that are closest in age. So it's turned out to be really sweet.
It's getting fun now because they can do more of the same things.
Yes, when they can play together, it's like magical. I don't know. It's just seeing your kids play together is one of those like sweet, sweet parenting things.
Yeah, we're having fun watching them have their little relationship and friendship. It's fun.
Well, let's dive in to their stories. So, take us back 3+ years ago. What was it like getting pregnant with your first?
So we got married April 2021. I was about to turn 31 at the time, and Brian was 36. So it was my second marriage, Brian's first marriage, but we knew going in we want a family, and we already were feeling like, we haven't been comfortably married for 7 years. Now it's time to have kids. We were like, okay, we want kids. We're just going to kind of go for it, because we're not getting any younger. And a lot of our friends were, having kids, and my siblings were having kids. And so we knew we wanted to just go ahead and go for it. So I think about 2 months and I stopped birth control, and we were not really actively like, oh, we're so excited, we're trying to get pregnant. We were like, let's just kind of see what happens. I have a thyroid disorder. My older sister had a couple pregnancy losses, and I had really, really irregular cycles and always have. So we weren't really sure, like, this could take a while. Let's just kind of see how it goes. So, yeah, we were really excited. I think we were, but we were also just unsure of how long it could take. So we just kind of went for it. And just very briefly, part of my story is just, after being divorced and just kind of feeling like, okay, I'm in my late 20s, and am I gonna be a mom? And I just remember praying and saying, like, God, I just feel like you've blessed me with so much already, but I do feel like I am equipped for that. Like, I really want kids. With my job as a SLP, I work with kids. I love kids. Like, I was just really longing for that. And so it was just so exciting to be like, wow, like, look at what God has brought me through and look at what he's done. I had a really difficult season in my previous marriage where I was very depressed and very anxious. Things were not good in that situation. There was a lot of just manipulation and verbal abuse and emotional abuse, and just a lot of things that I really feel like God delivered me from and healed. And so I was just really excited. So that's a little bit of the setup to being like, all right, we're just going to go for it. So I think it was about 2 months later that I was like, I am just so tired. I don't know what's going on. I remember being at the gym and just doing like a regular workout on a Saturday and just feeling awful. Just like, I don't know if I can keep going. I'm going to have to stop. And then later realizing, oh, I was pregnant then. That's why my body was like rejecting this. So I think I found out early September. And the week before, I was suspicious and had taken a test, like I said, and it was negative. So it was still really early on. And actually, that same weekend, my younger sister, I'm one of four. So I'm the second oldest. I have an older sister, younger brother. So my older sister already had two kids. And then my younger sister announced the week before that she was pregnant for the first time. And so I was like, oh, that's so funny. Like, I was suspicious, and now here we go. Well, then the next week I get a positive pregnancy test. And Brian was here, but I don't know. I can't remember if he knew I was taking a test. I think he knew that I was like, I am just off, like something's up. But I walked down the stairs just carrying it and just handed it to him. And he was like, oh my gosh. And he was just like, so, like, what do we do? And he started crying. He was so excited. So it was just a really happy moment for us.
Aw, that's good. And how sweet that you got to be pregnant with your sister too at the same time. That's so fun.
It was awesome.
So how close were your due dates to each other?
My brother actually later announced their wedding date, which was my sister's due date, and I was due a week later.
Oh, wow. Did either of you end up going to your brother's wedding?
I made it. The pictures are really rough. She had her baby the day before the wedding.
Oh, so she was not there.
No. And I don't remember actually, that might not be accurate that her due date was exactly his wedding date, but they were all like the same couple weeks.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly how it went, but I waited a little while to tell everyone in my family. So we knew that they were getting married. We knew Rebecca is pregnant. And then we were all home one weekend, and in my family, when we announced we're pregnant, we just put our feet on the table, which is so just random, but it comes from when my younger sister was like 3. My mom was pregnant with my little brother. She had her feet on the table randomly, with the swelling and the whatever. And my sister was like, I'm going to put my feet on the table, and my dad was like, you can't put your feet on the table unless you're pregnant. Then you can put your feet on the table. So ever since then, I don't know why or how this started, but that's how my older sister announced to us that she was pregnant both times.
Oh.
So I was just sitting at the bar and just like randomly put my feet on the table, and no one was really like noticing except my brother. And he was just like, wait, what? What are you doing? And just like got everyone's attention. And Rebecca did not. She was like, no, you're not. No, you're not. And I'm like, yeah, I am. So it was just really fun. But I remember my sister-in-law is just like, guys, like, what are you doing? That like, why now? Because when I told him our due date, she's like, no. So it was a really exciting year for our family for sure.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Well, I'm glad that at least your sister went the day before the wedding and not the day of. So your mom probably didn't feel like she had to be in multiple places at once.
Yeah, she didn't go to either of our births really. It was just, and my sister isn't, well, at the time was in the Raleigh area. So
Okay, so
um,
she wasn't local.
yeah, so and mom wasn't really, that was their first, so it wasn't like, oh, I need you to watch my toddler or anything. So it was fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how did your pregnancy go then? Were there any complications or was it pretty like textbook or smooth? How did it go?
It honestly wasn't really that bad. The worst part I would say was just towards the end being so uncomfortable. In the beginning, I was nauseous until I think around 16 weeks, but I didn't ever really throw up. I just felt so tired and so nauseous. I think the first people I told at the time, I was working full time for a local healthcare company and doing outpatient therapy. And so I had just like a revolving door all day of kids every 30 minutes, a new session. And I had a graduate student intern at the time. And I would just be sitting in a session like, I'm going to throw up and I'm going to have to run out of here. And that's going to be so awkward. So I told her, I was like, if I seem weird, like, this is why. I told my coworkers that I shared an office with, and everyone was really excited, but I just felt like they really needed to know. But all of that passed pretty quickly. I have scoliosis. I had back pain throughout. I had a really just weird, uncomfortable stretching sensation the first half of it, where I just feel like whatever tissue is in there, like I just remember right on my stomach it was just so tight. Like it was just uncomfortably tight, which the second time that was not an issue. But the first time I just remember being like, I'm just feeling so stretched, and it was just really strange. I remember being like short of breath pretty early, but honestly, like it really wasn't terrible. It really wasn't.
Well, good. I mean, that's positive. So, what kind of care were you seeking? What kind of birth were you planning? Like, what were your preparations like?
So my older sister and my mom did all like natural birth, like no interventions, but hospital births. So that's just kind of what I felt like, oh, that's just what you do. I didn't really consider any other options at the time because of my health insurance. I had to use the providers like in network with the company I worked for. So I was already set up at an OBGYN. It was like across, like the hospital was right across the street from my office. I actually worked part-time at the hospital during COVID and a little after COVID, kind of as needed in acute care. So I was familiar with the hospital. It was a smaller local hospital. I was pretty comfortable there. The office was like in the same building, the same medical center as the hospital that I went to for care. So since I was already set up there and knew that that's where I needed to go for my insurance to be in network and all of that, I just stayed there.
So you were planning just like a unmedicated natural birth at the hospital then?
Yes.
Okay, so take us to the end then. So what was the end of pregnancy like leading up to labor? How did labor start? How far along were you when all that started?
So I think because I was working full time, it's like time went so fast. And all of a sudden, it's like, okay, I've been watching some videos on YouTube and like listening to birth stories. Your podcast wasn't around yet, unfortunately. But I was just like, taking in some content, like trying to prepare myself. What is this really going to feel like? What do I need to know? I thought I was pretty prepared, I guess. But Brian, poor thing, I'm like, he has no idea what his role, like I wanted him to be a part of it. And so, the content or like classes, there's not really a lot out there for dads, I feel like. It's mostly like all of my social media algorithms. I'm not really on social media anymore, but at the time, like that's what I was getting fed was just like constant like birth, labor, all of this newborn care. So I felt like I had, I was sort of prepared. So he's like, well, my friend Kayla does a birth class at church. You know her? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, well, do you want to do it? I'm like, yeah, I'm like pretty pregnant. Like we should probably do it if we're gonna do it. And so he, I think, texted you and you were like, yeah, I'm not doing a class right now, but like I can come to your house and we can go through it one on one. So that's what we did. I think I'm trying to remember which baby it was pretty little at the time. True?
True was our baby. He was our fourth. Yeah, but he would have been almost a year at that point.
Yeah, I think you were doing like his first birthday around some of
Oh,
those times
yeah.
or planning it. I remember talking about that. But you were still so sick then too I remember you wearing a nose plug in our house with
Yes, I had parosmia,
yeah,
still do actually, but it was really bad at that point. That was like when it was still like really, really awful and I had to wear the nose plug like all the time.
yeah, so sad. That was awful. So anyways, you came in. I mean, I think I was like I'm thinking like 36 weeks. Like it was pretty last
We were
second.
cutting it close, yeah.
Yeah. And you came, I think, two or three times, and it was really helpful. Like, I feel like it tied together a lot of things that I had already learned. It was very clear. I know that I'm sure your content has changed and all that, but highly recommend.
Yes, it's been updated several times since you took it, but yes.
Yeah. Well, even just like the nursing, like I remember, spoiler alert, but I remember texting you like I don't know what to do with. I was like way too full, and there was a lot in there. Like I remember digging the binder out from under a pile of paper. Like, okay, what can I try? And like literally trying everything that you had listed, like trying to, and it worked, like it was just a good resource. It was very helpful for other things as well. So, anyways, we did that. I think that was eye opening for Brian. We were able to practice a few different things since it was in person, like the hip squeezes and counter pressure kind of things, like really quickly, just like, yeah, this might help you. So, I mean, we just didn't know yet what was coming. I feel like you can't adequately prepare for your first. So, I stopped working at 39 weeks. I was going to go to 40 weeks, honestly, but they moved my office. I work with a lot of kids on the spectrum and a lot of kids with all sorts of emotional regulation issues and just I'm like they're gonna freak out that my office is down the hall now. They're not gonna go with me. And a lot of 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, normally I would have just scooped them up and been like, here we go. And I'm like, I can't carry
Do
you right
that.
now.
Yeah.
So for my own safety and some of my bigger kids too that have, sometimes aggressive behaviors, I'm like, there is no way I can safely transition these kids to a new location. So I begged to stay in my old office and said, I will not be able to move offices. And they said, okay, see you after the baby. So I stopped working a week early, which was such a blessing because then I cleaned our house and, went to the grocery store. Like it was so nice to just rest and kind of prepare. My last appointment was 40 weeks in one day. So on my due date, I remember I scrubbed our shower. I'm not saying that put me into labor, but I think it helped, down on my hands and knees scrubbing. I went in the next morning, and actually earlier that morning, I was like, I think that's my mucus plug. I don't really know what I'm looking at here. So I went into the appointment and told the provider, like, hey, I think I lost my mucus plug this morning. And he was just like, yeah, that'll happen. It's good. You're going to have a baby.
Whether you are pregnant with your first baby or wanting to have a different birth experience for a subsequent delivery, this is the fully comprehensive Christian childbirth course for you, the Surrendered Birth Course. With over 10 years of experience as a childbirth educator, a birth doula, and having had 5 kids myself, almost 6, I have created a course fit for every mama out there who wishes to be fully informed on all things pregnancy, labor, birth, postpartum, and breastfeeding, while remembering to keep Jesus at the center of it all. Our God created a beautiful design for birth, something to look forward to, and not something to be feared. Not only will this course get you prepared for your birth, but it will also get you excited for it. It will answer questions you never knew you had and teach you things you didn't realize were so incredibly valuable and central to the entire birthing process. I've had numerous couples on their 2nd, 3rd, or even 4th babies who've taken this course and said how incredibly glad they were and that they learned so much more than they ever thought they would. With over 12 hours of video content, 5 modules, numerous lessons, detailed PDF printout notes, and endless resources, we dive deep into pregnancy, labor, the risks and benefits of interventions, inductions, immediate and extended postpartum for both mom and baby, everything you need to know about breastfeeding, and basic newborn care. This course covers everything. Once you've taken the course, I am available to you for any questions you might have during a monthly live Q&A Zoom call exclusive to our online course audience, as well as through email. The course is on demand, so as soon as you purchase it, you'll be able to start right away and re-watch any lessons as many times as you need. Whether you are planning a medicated hospital birth or an unmedicated birth at a birth center or home birth, this course will prepare you in every way that you can be prepared. While I understand the desire to take a specific hospital or home birth course catered to your specific birth plans, birth doesn't always go how we plan. And having the knowledge of how birth can go in other environments outside of our plans is essential. Most importantly, I will help you to surrender these plans to God. And in return, the Holy Spirit will provide you with the peace that only He can give. For more information on the course, to read testimonials of others who have taken it, or to sign up for the course, just click the link in the show notes. And lastly, remember, just like we say here every week on the podcast, learn all that you can, make the best plans, and then leave it in God's hands.
So I think I did a cervical check that visit. I don't know if I had prior, had been declining them. And, this practice, they're like, okay, so, when are we going to schedule your induction? We can do it at 39 weeks. And I was just like, what? No, thank you. what do you mean, and they're like, well, so it was just, there were definitely some different, I was trying to do things a different way than what they're used to. So he checked me at that time. I think I was like 1.5 centimeters, still, like, she was still way high up in there. She wasn't really dropping much yet. So he was like, it could be a while. Just because you lost your mucus plug doesn't really mean anything. So I was feeling okay. I wasn't really in a hurry. I was trying to make it to my brother's wedding and all that, but was driving around that morning running errands and was like, that's a new feeling. So I started having contractions. They were like hours apart, but I just had a few like pretty like intense, all of a sudden, like, oh, that doesn't feel good moments, not just like kind of crampy and achy, but like a strong feeling. So I started getting a little bit excited, like, ooh, maybe something's happening. So still hadn't packed my hospital bag. Went home, started packing. And as I'm packing, I'm like, these are like coming now. Like something's happening. So I called Brian at work. I'm gonna say it was 3 o'clock, and he had a really busy week at work that week. He was on a site somewhere or something. I just remember him being like, "Do you need me to come home?" I'm like, "No, no, no, no. I'm just letting you know something's happening." So he got home just, 5 o'clock, whatever. And I was like, yeah, they're like consistent. I've been timing them. I think at this point they were maybe like 7 minutes apart or 8 minutes apart. I was still moving around, but it was getting to where it was pretty uncomfortable. And I would like stop walking and kind of like hold on to something just for a second until it passed. And I was trying to think about like, ooh, I should be practicing breathing and trying to be relaxed, like trying to think of things I had learned and how to like help this keep going. So we ate dinner. They were still coming. Pretty soon, they were already 5 minutes apart. Like it didn't take long for it to be a pattern, and they were pretty consistent. What I was told is when they're 5 minutes apart, like come on in. So that's what we did. We ate dinner. I don't think we left until maybe like 8 o'clock or something like that. Like we waited a little while. We were nervous. We wanted to get there and like we didn't know what to expect. So we went in. This hospital is small, so there's not really triage. When you come in and you have a huge pregnant belly, they're just immediately like, okay, I'll call labor and delivery. And you just get sent straight up to the labor and delivery floor. So that's what they did. I was still like way too coherent to be there, right? Like answering all the questions, like I'm smiling, we're excited. And we get up there, they're like, yeah, you are having contractions. We're going to monitor you. You're only like 1.5 centimeters still. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not good. We're just going to monitor you. If you start making more progress, like we might keep you, but we'll just kind of see. So the monitors were terrible. I was getting uncomfortable laying there and I would try to move around. I'm like, I know I need to be moving around. I need to be walking. I need to be upright. And every time I tried to stand up or move around, the monitors would stop picking up something and they would come back in. So basically, I just laid there 2 hours while Brian watched. I don't even remember. I was asking him some questions like, "What time did we go in?" And he was like, "Oh, I know this game was still on when we left." Like he was just watching sports on TV, and I'm just laying there like, "What? Are they going to keep us?" We didn't bring all of our bags up, thankfully, because they did not keep me. Spoiler alert. The doctor came back in. He just seemed, it was a different provider than I saw that morning, but he just seemed annoyed. I just remember feeling like, you don't want to be here right now. And I felt like I was inconveniencing him, which was not a great feeling. So he came and checked me after 2 hours. I didn't make any progress because I was just laying in bed, not doing anything.
Right.
So he said, this is early labor. Just because you're having consistent contractions doesn't mean a lot right now. You need to go home. You need to rest. It could be another week. Like you don't need to be here. So a little discouraged. The hospital's like 25 minutes away.
Well, isn't that funny that they were like trying to induce you a week before, but now that you're actually in labor, They're like, actually, just go home.
I know.
Or even like, hey, make sure you come in when they're 5 minutes apart. And then you listen to them and you come in when they're 5 minutes apart. And then they're like, actually, go home. Yeah, that's pretty conflicting and confusing from a provider standpoint.
And I just remember the nurse being like, "Oh, don't be embarrassed. It's okay. You're a first time mom." And at that point, I wasn't embarrassed. I was frustrated. And then after she said that, I was ashamed. I was like, "Oh, okay. I'm supposed to be embarrassed. I guess I am like, I didn't know better, and here I am." But it was like really discouraging.
Yeah.
So guess what? When I got up out of bed and started walking, they wheeled me up, getting there. I walked myself out. I was like, it was happening. It got so much worse. Moving around, the contractions were stronger. They were, closer together. I was holding onto the wall, like leaving, feeling like I don't know that I should be leaving. So I remember the security guard in the parking lot. It was dark. I think we started leaving at like they kept us 2 hours. I mean, it was probably 10:30 or 11 at night. The security guard was like watching me hold on to like a light pole in the parking lot and like breathing. And I just remember thinking like this doesn't seem like I should be driving 25 minutes home right now, but we don't really have another choice. I didn't demand to stay. I was like, okay, we'll go home. And I remember them being like, go out. Like, I don't know where you live, but I know it's dark. Maybe you could do some curb walking or like go home and have sex. And I was just looking at Brian like, no, get some rest, go sleep in your own bed. So that's what we did. We went home. We did not walk around. I was like, Brian, just go to bed, just get rest. I guess this isn't happening right now. I'm uncomfortable. I don't think I can like lay down and sleep. So I did a few things around the house. I went into the other bedroom and kind of tried to sleep. And when I was laying down, it was like the contractions would slow down, but they weren't going away and they were still really strong. So every, maybe like 15 minutes or something, maybe 20 minutes was like the longest break I had. So I was falling asleep in between. But what was happening is it was shifting to like it was all in my back. It was all back labor. And I would wake up in just like a panicked state because I wasn't expecting it. I was asleep. And it's like I would wake up all of a sudden with this horrible back pain and not know like what to do. So I tried the mile circuit. I was laying there like trying to go through those motions. Thanks to you, had pulled my little binder out, was trying all that stuff. I mostly was on my hands and knees, and that was the only position that I felt like I could get relief in and feel like I could get through the contractions. So it was a long night. I got in the shower two different times. The first time, it was so helpful. Like it felt so good. I was just standing there like until we had no hot water left. Like it was just so awesome. It relaxed me a lot. Like it was amazing. And so I think later on in the night, I was like, man, that would felt so good. Like I'm going to do that again. Second time, it was not very helpful. And every motion I was making was just making like the contractions faster and more intense. And so I just remember being like soaking wet in the bathroom. Like that was a mistake. Now I'm wet. I have to get dressed. I have to move. So I just let Brian sleep. Like there was really nothing he could do. In my mind at this point, I was feeling discouraged. I was listening to like the Christian hypnobirthing. I was like trying everything I could to like keep my spirits up, like it's going to be fine, but it was getting really intense. And so I was like, what is Brian going to do right now? He's just going to be tired. Like I'm going to need him because this is clearly happening now. It's not stopping. So I need him to be okay so he can support me like when it actually gets intense. That's how I felt like in my mind the whole time. This is early labor. This is early labor. That's what I just kept thinking. I was not timing my contractions anymore. I have no idea how close together they were. So eventually in the morning, I'm like exhausted. I mean, I've been up all night doing everything I can. So I wake Brian up. I think it was probably like, I mean, he slept in. Like for him to sleep until 7 or even after that, like that's sleeping in. And so he like slept in. eventually I woke him up like, hey, I've been up all night. I'm still having contractions. And he was like, oh my gosh. Okay. So he quickly is like taking a shower. He's making his breakfast. I'm just like standing there watching him make eggs. Like, this, we need to go. Like, I'm in pain. So I remember eating like half a bowl of cereal. Like, I was trying, but I was just like not feeling it. I was nauseous on and off at this point, like just feeling so sick, so terrible. So we get in the car, we start driving. That was, I know everybody talks about the car labor. It was terrible. It was 25 minutes. I think he got us there in under 20, like he was flying there. We pull into the parking lot. They immediately see me and see like, wow, she doesn't look great. They get the wheelchair. They're like nervous to have the pregnant people like they're like, get her to labor and delivery. Like they don't even want to see you. So they were asking me all these questions. I could not speak at this point. Brian's answering all the questions. The nurse from labor and delivery comes down to like bring us upstairs, and she's introducing herself to me. And I can't even look at her. My eyes are closed. I'm breathing. I'm completely out of it. So we get up there, and I just remember saying to her, like, I need an epidural. I don't know how far along I am. I just need this to end. Like, I can't do this. So they're like, can you put a gown on? Can you do a urine sample? All that stuff. So I went in the bathroom. I was able to put on a gown, do all that. I remember walking from the bathroom back to the bed and stopping in the middle of the room, getting down on my hands and knees to have a contraction because I really couldn't tolerate it in any other position.
Yeah.
And them just looking at me like, uh-oh, like this isn't, she's pretty far along. So I didn't really realize it at the time. I just felt so tired. I wasn't really aware of all of that, but got in the bed and the nurse checked me. And at this point, I'm crying. I'm like, I'm so tired. I just can't do it anymore. I just need it to stop. And I remember her being like, Kathleen, look at me. Look at me. You are 10 centimeters. Your water is bulging. You're about to have a baby. And I just started crying even harder. I was shocked. I was like, oh my gosh, I did it. Like, this is it. Like, I got there. I just had this sense of relief, like, it's over. I made it. It's going to be okay.
And you did it all by yourself.
Yeah, well, in my mind, it's like, maybe that's a hack for these moms listening. I was like, oh, it's early labor, because that's what I was
The
told.
whole
I was
night, you're
sitting.
like, I'm in early labor.
It must be. I'm like, how do people do this? They must be so much like their pain tolerance is higher. Like, how do you do this? Like if this is early, I don't want to know what it's going to feel like. That's why I was begging for the epidural. So she said, do you still want an epidural? I'm not making any guarantees. I can try to call them. And I was like, no, I made it. Like, no, I don't want an epidural. I didn't want it in the first place. Let's do this. So I felt a little bit of relief just knowing, like, okay, because my biggest fear at this point was that they would look at me and say, you're 2 centimeters, you need to go home. And so at this point, I was willing to do anything. Like if they're like, okay, well, you're not really far enough for us to keep you, but we could give you Pitocin. I would have been like, I don't care. Give me an epidural, give me Pitocin. Just this has to stop. So once the nurse realized I was so close, it was like 10 people walked in the room. It's like they're just all ready to catch this baby. The doctor, I think, was already there for another birth. This was a different provider, and it was one that I liked all of them okay, but I was pretty mad at the one that had sent me home the night before. I'm glad it wasn't him anymore. So she was great. She said, all right, I can break your water. At this point, I was still in a lot of pain and it was still back labor. So I had them like switch the bed around to where I could be hands and knees. But I was so exhausted, I couldn't really hold myself in that position anymore. So I ended up just kind of on my back. I think I tried my side and it was making the contractions so much more intense. My back was just hurting so much still at this point. So I think I agreed at that point to have her go ahead and break my water. Looking back, I don't know that I would have agreed. I think I should have stayed on my feet and kept moving around because I don't think Lucy was quite in a good position. because of all the back labor. But they broke my water. It was like they're just like waiting, literally waiting to catch this baby. And I just was laying there like, okay, so like now what, My contractions were really not very close together. So even though I was at 10 centimeters, it's like my body was really tired and they were up to like 10 minutes apart. So we were
Wow.
having to wait 10 minutes for me to have an opportunity to push with my contractions. So it was very difficult for me. I was really not with it. I was falling asleep, like between contractions. I was just passing out, completely asleep. And then as soon as my contractions would come back, I would just start saying no. Like that's the only word I said this whole pushing experience. I would just start saying no, 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 no. And they knew, like, okay, they're watching the monitor. So they could tell, like, oh, do you feel that? And then all of a sudden I would start saying no. And so Brian is just kind of there, like he's not really sure what to do. He can tell like this like is not going great, but like what do we do about it? I remember saying like I can't be on my back. Like it's hurting so bad to lay on my back. I want to be in another position, but it's like nobody was jumping up like let's try this. Let's do this next. What about this? Nobody had any suggestions. They were just kind of like waiting for her to pop out, I guess. So I remember saying to the nurse, like, I know I'm supposed to be peeing a lot. I haven't peed in a while. I was drinking water. I mean, the whole time I'm drinking water. And I remember her just kind of saying, like, I think you're probably okay. I think she didn't want me to get out of the bed and
Have a baby on the toilet, probably.
maybe. So I didn't go to the bathroom. And at this point, like I was not really there anymore. I was in survival mode. Like I wasn't really responding. I remember lab came and like they had started an IV at some point. It was capped, but I had an IV. They came and like took some blood and I was just like handing them my arm and like not responding, not talking. They would ask me questions, I wouldn't respond. Like I was really out of it and so tired. So we got there. I think we didn't really get checked in and set up until about 9:30, and Lucy was born at 12:55. So it was essentially, maybe it was not, I don't know. It was about 3 hours of pushing. And when I say pushing, it wasn't like I was pushing the whole time because my contractions were so far apart.
Did you feel the urge to push?
No. All I felt was every time I had a contraction, my back was so uncomfortable.
Was she sunny side up?
Yes. So that's what I
Okay.
think happened.
Yeah.
I think she was trying to turn herself around and all of that. But yeah, I think throughout this whole process, she was sunny side up.
Gotcha. That makes sense based on everything you said.
Yeah. So eventually, it's like she would make her way down and they were trying to encourage me. They had like the mirror. They would be like, oh, look, I see some hair. Like, reach down and feel her. Like, she would get pretty close and then she just got sucked back up every single time.
Yeah.
So, and because my contractions were so far apart, it just drug on
It
and
just
on and
took.
on.
Yeah.
And I was still screaming no. I don't know if screaming is a fair word, but
You're
that's all I said.
vocalizing. Yeah.
I wasn't really like screaming. I knew that I wasn't supposed to do that, but I was making sounds and I was saying no. That's all I said for like 3 hours. So eventually she got close enough down there. Like it was like, okay, this needs to happen. I remember at one point they started fluids in my IV and I said I was with it enough to be like, why are you giving me fluids? And all the nurse really said was, well, her heart is, she's having like some D cells and I think this would help or something along those lines. And looking back, I'm not really sure why that was done. So at this point, they were giving me some fluids for her. I guess her heart rate was dropping some, which I feel like is normal. But, anyways, she was still looking good. Like they wanted me on the monitor, I think was the other reason they didn't want me moving around. I think they wanted like the continuous, monitoring. So they started doing coached pushing. And at this point, I was not participating with this process. I was resisting the process. They were like, you need to hold your knees. I said, I can't hold my knees. That hurts worse. I'm not holding my knees. No, no, no. I just kept saying no. So they were holding my knees for me. They were trying to get Brian to hold them. And all I wanted was for my legs to be together. Like it didn't feel good when they were pushing my legs back. It was way worse. So she starts crowning and her head comes out. And it's just so intense. It hurts so bad. And I remember I broke free from their grasp on me of laying there, and I started moving some, trying to like escape from that, I guess. Like I was kind of inching my way up in the bed a little bit, and my legs, like I was moving my legs. And all I remember is the doctor saying, like, you're going to hurt your baby. Stop. You're going to hurt your baby. And that got my attention. It was a very scary moment. And I felt like afraid in that moment. So I stopped that. And then she came the rest of the way out. And I was just like so traumatized from all of that. So I felt like, okay, well, at least she's here. Like this is almost over. It is over. So her umbilical cord was like pretty short. And so they couldn't really put her on my chest. She was kind of like on my abdomen. And so I couldn't really like see her very well yet. She looked great. Like her color was good. She was immediately crying. Like we were, feeling a little bit excited. Like we want to meet her. Brian was excited. But then I guess I wanted like delayed cord clamping. They didn't really do that because they were trying to like get her up on my chest. And at this point, like I said, I didn't care about any of this. I was just ready for it to be over. So they pretty quickly cut her cord. Actually, one of the nurses grabbed Brian's phone and just started taking pictures. So I have like a video of Brian cutting her cord and pictures of us from that moment. And I just look miserable. Like it's kind of sad to look back on because I was just so tired and so in so much pain. So she's up on my chest. I'm trying to like meet her and all of that, and I'm just crying and from pain, not from joy of meeting my baby. Well, then I guess I'm bleeding quite a bit, and the provider starts getting nervous. So she starts kind of barking orders like, we need to start Pitocin now. She looks at me and she's like, we need to get your placenta out. You're bleeding quite a bit. We need to get it out. So I don't know what's happening, but all of a sudden one nurse on each side of me are putting all of their weight onto my stomach as hard as they can. The doctor is telling them to do this. I go into fight mode. I am pushing them off of me saying stop. And they're like, I'm so sorry. I know this really hurts. You are bleeding a lot. We have to do this. So they start pushing on me. I'm like screaming at this point. Brian is covering Lucy's ears. And the baby nurse was like, she's okay. It's okay. Like he was like, Kathleen, like Lucy's right there. Like, don't scream at her, and I'm
Was
like,
she
not.
still on your chest?
She is on my chest.
Okay, but the cord
I
was
am
cut
like
already.
trying not to like squeeze her because I'm holding her and I'm like struggling. And with one hand, I'm like holding her and the other hand, I'm shoving them off of me.
Oh my gosh, the doula in me has like so many things to say
Go
about
for it.
everything. No, I'm just like, I want you to finish your story, but I'm just like, I would have done this and I would have said that and I would have stopped that and I would have done like just from the moment that she said that you couldn't go to the bathroom, that like, and that you had to be on your back, like those things. Because I'm sitting here not surprised at all that you're bleeding because you've been there for 3.5 hours and they haven't let you pee. And that's one of the most important things you have to do is to empty your bladder. One, so your baby has room to come down, but two, so your uterus is able to clamp properly so the full bladder's not blocking it and putting pressure on it so that, because that's going to cause more bleeding too, is if you have a full bladder. So I'm like thinking all these things like, oh my gosh, if they had just let her get up and empty her bladder and then not put fluids in her either, like, because you were drinking and everything, like to make matters worse. But okay, continue. I'm sorry. So you're basically being tortured at this point.
So you called it. She started giving me a catheter. in the midst of all of the chaos, she said she was feeling around and she said, I think your bladder is extremely full. And that is preventing your uterus from, like you said, clamping down. And that's why you're bleeding. So I just pushed a baby out. There's blood everywhere. And all of a sudden, I'm getting a catheter, unmedicated. It was awful. My first catheter, it was just like, I just wanted everyone to just leave the room. Like, it was awful. It was so terrible.
Had they pulled your placenta out already?
I don't know which happened first. They
Okay.
were working on it if they hadn't yet. But I know that they had me actually push my placenta out. I think that they may have done that first and then given me the catheter right after because the bleeding wasn't stopping. But I remember I wasn't having a contraction. That's part of the problem. My contractions were like 10 minutes apart. So
Yeah.
it's not like they can wait 2 minutes and then my body pushes the placenta out. It was going to be a while before I had another contraction. So they were like, you have to push. Like, we're pushing as much as we can. And I'm sure they were pulling on it. I don't know, but
I'm
they
sure they were.
they had me push. So thankfully it all came out in one piece. They were like, you are like borderline. Like, it wasn't really, oh gosh, what's it called when you have a lot of,
What a hemorrhage.
yeah, it wasn't like they didn't really use that word, but it was like borderline, I think, with the amount of blood that I lost. I remember them like really wanting to make sure I was feeling steady on my feet and stuff afterwards. But that is Lucy's story where, I mean, we were thankful that she was there. I think I started apologizing, which is ridiculous in hindsight. But, as they're stitching me up, I had a second-degree tear. I could feel the stitches. Like, they, of course, did the local, and I didn't even care. Like, it was nothing. I was just like, I'm not even going to say anything. I think a couple of times I was like, I can feel that. And she's like, oh my gosh, sorry. Like, I'm like, no, it's really not that bad. It's fine. Um, but they're just like, they just go straight to chit chat. Like, I just remember them just like, they're just all normal. And I'm just like so in shock. And once I started realizing what happened and all of that, I remember looking at the nurses and being like, I'm so sorry I was pushing you. And I'm like, I was just feeling kind of like embarrassed, I guess, that felt like it was made to feel like I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do the whole time, if that makes sense. Like, I remember Brian a couple times was like, Kathleen, like, they're saying, you need to do whatever. Like, he didn't really realize that I wasn't like, it's not like I wasn't cooperating. He kind of felt like they're saying this, so you're not doing that. So he was kind of like trying to be the go between, but not really advocating for me because he didn't know what was happening. And I wasn't able to advocate for myself and say, I mean, I was saying no. I think that's a pretty strong, indicator. They should have been like, you seem really uncomfortable. Let's try something else. Nobody did that. It was like I was saying things and no one heard me.
Oh, they hurt you. They just chose to do what they wanted to do anyways. I'm sure Brian was very much in the mindset of like, hey, they're saying these things, so they must be true. They must be important. They must, meanwhile, you're probably primal and instinctively trying to defend yourself and to save yourself because what they're doing to you is not natural.
Yeah. And looking back, I think that basically I was being treated as someone that had an epidural.
Yeah.
Like, they're used to, I'm going to be cooperative. I'm going to lay there on my back. I don't need to get up and use the bathroom because I already have a catheter because I have an epidural. Like, they just didn't really know what to do with me. I didn't, unfortunately, have a nurse that was like proactive and able to like suggest anything. She was just monitoring the baby. She was monitoring me. She wasn't like, okay, look, this is what we're doing now. I needed someone to say, this is what we're going to do. And then, like, if I'm not responding well to that, say, okay, let's try this. And because, I just wasn't really there enough to make decisions.
Yeah.
So everything was fine. I mean, after that, I remember even, an hour or two after, like, I was walking around, I was okay. I mean, not okay. I was deeply traumatized, but Lucy was doing great. No issues whatsoever with either of us. It was actually such a blessing with this smaller hospital just because they just left us alone a lot more. Now that I have two birth experiences at two different places, I can kind of compare hospital births and what's a typical postpartum stay. I immediately started asking to go home. They said you have to stay at least 24 hours. That's the minimum. So we can check your labs and check Lucy's labs and make sure you're good. So I was fine with that. There were five first time moms that were all trying to breastfeed that night. And this is a small unit. Five doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a lot for them. There was no lactation. They only have two lactation consultants. Both of them were out. One had like a family emergency, and the other one was traveling or something like that. So it was on these nurses to teach five new moms how to latch your baby and how to do all of this. So honestly, we just didn't have a lot of attention, and it was awesome. I remember I kind of wanted to be a part of her bath, but I was so tired and she wasn't sleeping. Like at night, she was a lot more active and was waking up a lot more. And I was just so tired. I mean, I hadn't slept in so long. And I remember the nurse being like, I'm just going to take her and give her a bath. I will bring her back soon. But usually we put them under the warmer, they get really cozy and they knock out for a little while. And I think you need some rest. Like, so they didn't really take her. They don't have a nursery. All the babies are in the rooms, but they did take her for a little while. And looking back, I don't know that I would have done it that way. I kind of was sad to miss that, but they brought her back, and everything was fine. We got discharged the next day to go home. It was around 24 hours. I was really pestering them, like, we would like to leave. It was a Sunday, so I remember we laid there and like watched online church, and I was just so relieved. I was relieved. I felt like it was over. We were going to get to go home. I could really like try to bond with her, and not be in this place anymore. So I didn't know how to put her in her car seat. I rang the nurse button and was like, what do I do? And I think legally they're not actually supposed to put your baby in the car seat, but this nurse put her in the car seat for me and taught me how. That was kind of embarrassing. We go home, and yeah, everything with her postpartum, I was still sort of in like a state of disbelief at how terrible it was, how terrible of an experience I had. But really, on paper, it's like, what more could you ask for? I mean, I had a vaginal birth. There were no serious complications. We're home the next day. We're both healthy. I mean, I felt like very upset at how it went, but also thankful that we were okay. And so it was just a strange feeling of like, on paper, no one's going to really understand what I just went through.
Yeah.
So her postpartum, I mean, it wasn't the plan, but I did not go back to work full time. I resigned and started a part time job. So she started part time childcare at 4 months, and I started a part time job instead of my full time job. We were blessed enough to be able to lose in whole income for a while I built up a caseload part time. If I had to have gone back full time, I think I could have done it, but I was at a job. It was only 4 days a week, but the days were pretty long. And sometimes I would have like 16 or 18 patients on my schedule for that day, like back to back to back all day long. I just didn't feel like I had the energy to do that. I didn't want to leave her for so long at daycare.
Yeah.
So we told the daycare we were at, or planning to use, like, we're not coming. And we started a part-time daycare instead.
So did breastfeeding ultimately go okay?
It did. It was just at first I was in a lot of pain and very engorged, and it took a while to resolve. And really throughout, I had an oversupply. We did have some issues with her kind of choking and gagging because my letdowns were so intense for her. She got used to it though, once she got a little bit bigger, and it kind of resolved. We got thrush like multiple times, which was not fun. Looking back, I think it's because the reusable nursing pads were staying too wet against my skin.
Yeah.
The disposable ones do a better job of like, it still feels dry.
Yeah.
So once I switched and got rid of those, it was a lot better. We had a great lactation consultant. I had the same one for both girls. It's at their pediatrician. And so she was just like, this is the Gerber baby for breastfeeding. I mean, Lucy was 8 pounds, 3 ounces, just quickly gained weight. I mean, very quickly gained weight. And they're just like, what are you eating? Like, I mean, I would go in and they're like, well, you're supplementing with formula, right? And I'm like, no, I'm not. And they're like, this is just a breastfeeding baby. They were both so chubby. The pictures are hilarious now looking back. Like they were so cute and so chunky. So it went really, really well. I'm so thankful. The oversupply, like you can't complain, right? But it had its hard moments
It does.
too.
It has its difficulties for sure. Wow. So, how long did it take you to process out the trauma from your delivery? Were you able to sort of like work your way through that before you got pregnant with your second?
Um,
Or are you still working through it right now?
Honestly, probably, but I'm a person, I'm very optimistic. I'm very positive. I don't handle negative emotions well. I don't like conflict. I don't like confrontation. I don't like to sit with my feelings and be like, why do I feel angry? Why do I feel sad? I'm just like, it's okay. It's fine. Everything's fine. So honestly, no, I didn't deal with it at all. Uh, I remember my mom I was actually pregnant again at the time. They didn't know, but we were sitting there and my mom's like, I was talking about something with Lucy's birth. And I remember my mom being like, you're gonna, like, you need to do something. Like, what are you gonna do? Cause I just remember being like, I can't go through that again, And she's like, you need to work through this somehow. I just remember her kind of encouraging me and me just like, that was terrible. Like, I don't know how people do this. I don't know if I want to I don't know. I was just like, I just want a C-section. I want to be knocked out. I don't want to know about anything that's happening. Like, it was just all of it was so hard. But honestly, at the time, like in my relationship with the Lord, like I was angry. I was mad because I was mad that it had to be so painful. And I was mad that I felt like it's like we're suffering. It's like, think about all the moms all over the world going through this. They don't even have an option of an epidural. They don't have this, sort of luxury of like, I can, have techniques or have all of this. They probably don't even know some of the things that I know. And it's so painful. I mean, I was so mad on a large scale for how this whole process works. I didn't feel like birth is so beautiful, it's so magical. I was just mad about all of it. And it's hard to be mad with God. You don't want to look at that. I think that's difficult. And so I just didn't really do anything about it for a while. I felt like God wasn't there when I was suffering in that room. I just felt abandoned. I felt like that was nothing like I expected it to be. I expected it to be painful. I feel like I did my part. I got to 10 centimeters. I showed up and then it got bad. And so I didn't deal with it. I honestly didn't deal with it. I just kind of shoved it down and kept going.
Are you still mad at God for that?
I think that it took a lot of like reframing this and thinking about like, I know that that's not true, right? I know that's a lie that God is like making me suffer. Like, God is good. He's good all the time. We are not promised an easy life. We're not promised that life is always good. We're promised difficulties, actually. Like, this suffering that I went through, like, I know it has a purpose. Like, I know that I learned something, that I grew in this season. Like, I was trying really hard to believe what I know is true, and it just took a long time. I think now looking back, I'm not angry about how her birth went at all. Like, I recognize things that could have been so much better. And I feel like with Naomi's story, like it was very much redeemed. Like, I had a very different experience. And now I recognize, honestly, my pride going into that first experience, thinking like, I got this, like it's going to be fine. We'll just figure it out, and not really relying on the Lord like I should have. But even in that, knowing like he was there the whole time, he didn't abandon me, even if it felt that way. And actually, it was my brother-in-law. We were sitting there having a conversation, and I was pregnant with Naomi at the time, and he was like, I was just like, I don't even know what's going to happen. I can't think about it. If I start thinking about it, I start panicking. And he's like, well, I don't know about all that. All I know is God was there with you the first time, and he'll be there with you again. And really, when he said that, it was like I chose to believe it. It was like, you know what? That is so true. And I think that was one of the first moments, and I'm already pregnant with number 2 at this point. That was one of the first moments that I actually believed it. I actually believed that is true. God was there, and felt so comforted by that, even though it didn't go how I thought it would.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. You can reach me at Surrendered Birth Services on Instagram, or email me at contact@surrenderedbirthservices.com. Be sure not to miss an episode by hitting the follow button. Also, we'd love for you to leave a written review of the show so that more people's births and lives can be changed by the love of Jesus and the empowerment of accurate birth education. If you really enjoyed this episode in particular, please take a screenshot of it and post it to your Instagram story, tagging Surrendered Birth Services. If you would like to be a guest on the Surrendered Birth Stories podcast, please click the link in the episode show notes to fill out your interest form. Also, if you're interested in taking my childbirth classes, birth consultations, or having me as your birth doula, please click on the link in the show notes to take you to my website for online and in-person options. Just as a reminder, this show is not giving medical advice, so please continue to see your personal care provider as needs arise. We hope you have a great week, and remember, learn all that you can, make the best plans, and then leave it in God's hands. Hey.
Hey,
Sorry.
I don't know what happened. It just froze.
Well, it froze, and then I looked and saw that my internet had gone out, which likely means that my 2-year-old walked into the Wi-Fi and pressed a button and turned it off. So I quickly texted my husband and said, please get on that ASAP. So it's back on now.